Hello, welcome back to Team Dominguez Realtors. My name is Juliana, and this is our series on documents. This document is called the Customer Information Form. This document is one that you should receive at your earliest connection with someone who is a licensed real estate salesperson or a broker. We, as licensed professionals in the real estate industry, are required to present this form to you along with the information as soon as we are entering into a relationship with you that could be construed as an agency relationship. That's the purpose of this form, is to define for the client what an agency relationship is. Customer information form, what customers need to know when working with real estate brokers or licensees. This document describes the various types of agency relationships that can exist in real estate transactions. Agency means a relationship in which a real estate broker or licensee represents a client by the client's consent, whether expressed or implied, in an immovable property transaction. An agency relationship is formed when a real estate licensee works for you in your best interest and represents you. Agency relationships can be formed with buyers, sellers, and lessors and lessees. The designated agency means the agency relationship that shall be presumed to exist when a licensee engaged in any real estate transaction, except as otherwise provided in LARS 9 3891, is working with a client, unless there is a written agreement providing for a different relationship. So, unless there's a written agreement saying something different, it's presumed that you are in an agency relationship when a real estate person begins advising you on any matter related to real estate. The law presumes that the real estate agency you work with is your designated agent, unless you have a written agreement otherwise. No other licensees in the office work for you unless disclosed and approved by you. You should confine your discussions of buying, selling to your designated agent or agents only. Dual agency. What is dual agency? That's a concept that we hear often in this business. It means an agency relationship in which a licensee is working with both buyer and seller, or both landlord and tenant, in the same transaction. Such a relationship shall not constitute dual agency if the licensee is the seller of property that he or she owns, or if the property is owned by a real estate business of which the licensee is the sole proprietor and agent. A dual agency relationship shall not be construed to exist in a circumstance in which the licensee is working with both landlord and tenant as to a lease that does not exceed a term of 3 years and the licensee is the landlord. Dual agency is allowed only when informed consent, which is another document, is presumed to have been given by any client who signed the dual agency disclosure form prescribed by the Louisiana Real Estate Commission. Specific duties owed to both buyer, seller, and lessor, lessee are to treat all clients honestly, to provide factual information about the property, to disclose all latent material defects in the property that are known to them, to help the buyer compare financing options, to provide information about comparable properties that have sold so that both clients may make educated buying and selling decisions. Notice that in this description, the real estate professional is not working solely for one side or the other, therefore may not disclose any information that could compromise the position of either party. In a dual agency transaction, the person needs to remain neutral, the real estate professional. So that's not always the best option if you're on the side of the buyer or the seller. Most of the time, you want a real estate professional that's working solely for you, except in certain circumstances where it just might be more convenient for all parties to have the same agent working both sides of the transaction. Normally, you want someone who's representing you and you alone so that that person can also advise you in ways that just can't happen in a dual agency type situation. To disclose financial qualifications to the buyer, lessee, to the seller, lessor. to explain real estate terms to help buyers, lessees arrange for property inspections, and to explain closing costs and procedures. Again, just a source of knowledge and explanation, not an advisory type position in a dual agency situation. Confidential information means information obtained by a licensee from a client during the term of a brokerage agreement that was made confidential by the written request or written instruction of the client, or is information the disclosure of which could materially harm the position of the client, unless at any time any of the following occur. The client permits the disclosure by word or conduct, the disclosure is required by law or would reveal serious defect, the information became public from a source other than the licensee. So, if you are representing a seller in a real estate transaction and you are aware of a material defect in that property, you have an obligation as a realtor, real estate licensed professional. Those are not always realtors, not always one and the same, to disclose that information to the buyer because it's legally required. However, you would not want to disclose certain financial information that might compromise the position of your seller or your buyer in either position. By signing below, you acknowledge that you have read and understand this form and that you are authorized to sign this form in the capacity in which you have signed. So, simple document here, making sure that the client has been advised that he or she is entering into an agency relationship. Your agent represents you. They have fiduciary duty toward you to be honest, to not disclose certain information that should not be disclosed, to work in your best interest, and to make sure that legally you are represented as you should be. Again, in a dual agency situation, a little bit different, but nonetheless, ethically speaking, your agent should be following all of the laws related to the topic of agency. Again, any questions about this? If you need a more in-depth explanation, feel free to reach out via email or give me a phone call, 985-888-0252. Thanks so much.